It's Tuesday, which actually usually doesn't mean a Mio on MMA podcast, but we had, oh, as my phone blows up, we had UFC this weekend, we had Bellator this weekend, we had ONE FC this weekend, and simply put, that means that there's a ton to talk about. I'm just responding to the roommate. There we go. Um, so obviously we have three big fight cards to talk about. A lot of storylines. We'll go through the UFC in depth. Bellator and ONE will be a little bit more of a skim. The reason for that is that there often are fights on both of those promotions cards that are not really huge things to talk about. A classic example of this would be on the Bellator 286 card. There was a fight. Let me get the records right. Between a 4-0 fighter and a 2-4 fighter. There was a fight between a 1-1 fighter and a 2-0 fighter. And there was a fight between someone. Okay, well, Keone Diggs and Ricardo Sexes don't actually have bad records, but it's just a filler fight, is why we're not going to really talk about it. So there's that. And we're going to go into deep into both the main events because I think they've got some interesting things going on. But let's talk about the UFC first. We had the fight that kind of really backfired for the UFC because, and I say this not because Xiaonan Yan won and she's unpromotable, she's not interesting, she's not a good fighter, but because all the promotion, by the UFC's own admittance, was on Mackenzie Dern. So when she loses this fight, you've lost an opportunity to try to build a star because you put all your eggs in that one basket. And I get it. Dern, number one, speaks English. Number two, has the perv fandom and has world credentials as a jiu-jitsu player. Like, she has more potential star power. But Jan was like completely unpromoted throughout this whole thing. And so when she wins, you kind of get nothing out of it if you're the UFC, which is, I don't want to say a shame because, I mean, you reap what you sow, but it is what it is. The fight itself was incredibly easy to score in terms of who won what round. Jan kept it standing in rounds 1, round 3, and round 4. And she won those rounds 10-9. Don't really see any other score card possible. She was hitting Dern with good shots, but not super powerful. Didn't drop her. Didn't seriously have her hurt. Outvolumed her. Kept on her bike. Kept away. And then rounds 2 and 5 are the interesting ones because those are the rounds that went to the ground. I scored them 10-9s myself. Now, to be clear, if you scored the 5th round at 10-8, I have no objections. I think round 2 as a 10-8 is a stretch. It's definitely a round that Dern won because Jan went into her guard. There was a leg lock attempt. There was an arm triangle attempt that was actually looked really, really good. The leg lock, not so much the arm triangle, yes. But Jan survived, didn't get tapped, and did land some shots of her own. Like, she had offense during the phases that were on the feet, and she had offense particularly during the leg lock portion where she was hitting her with strikes. And under the UFC's rules, the emphasis on damage, the emphasis on either significant damage or completely destroying your opponent and not letting them have any offense to get a 10-8, I don't think the second round works. The 5th round is a different story because Dern was on top a lot, landing ground and pound, had some side control, looked for an arm bar, got back, tried for the rear naked choke, tried for different things, and granted, with the last 20 seconds, Jan slips out and starts throwing some punches from top, but that was the only offense that Jan had. If you scored that at 10-8, I'm fine with it. This is a draw fight. That's cool. Dern didn't win, but draw is quite possible, and one judge did score a draw. I think it was Mike Bell. Let's have a quick look here. Dern versus Jan. Fight card. Decision, please. Yeah. Michael Bell, 10-8 in the 5th round. The other judges had my scorecard. Nothing wrong with that scorecard. Nothing wrong at all. Would I... Okay, now here's the question. Would I like that to be a 10-8 round? Would I like that? Would I like to have the courage and the backing to score it as a 10-8? Yes. But MMA judges have been discouraged from scoring 10-8s. Really. There was a time period there where we got a bunch of 10-8s and then it stopped. And we are told that there was some movement towards limiting 10-8s, not liking it, and so on. And the assumption is that it was Dana White. The assumption it was the UFC because there's no other promotion that has that big stick to swing. And there's no one else in the UFC who would advocate for that. Now, the interesting thing coming out of this is there's a weird narrative when it comes to Mackenzie Dern. Like, I want to make this quite clear. Mackenzie Dern as a striker is pretty goddamn terrible. She has actually a really okay jab, like a seriously above average jab, and nothing else. Absolutely nothing else. Her striking game sometimes works when she throws the jab and the opponent tries to move in for a counter. And like the second round of this fight was a great example where like throws a jab and then Jan doesn't kind of move backwards and allows Dern to clinch up. I think it happened in the 5th round as well. That's how we got the takedown, where she just kind of manhandled the fight to the ground. But there's this weird thing where like people are like, oh, I mean, I really wish Mackenzie Dern would take striking seriously. She's training with Jason Perillo, who's a boxing coach, one of the better ones in MMA. That gym is known specifically for boxing, not for grappling, not for wrestling necessarily. They do teach that. But the highlight is Perillo's ability to train boxing into people. And it has definitely made her better because she didn't even have that jab when she got there. She's just bad at it. Like, I don't think it's a matter of, like, focus or an idea that she doesn't think she has to become a good striker or anything. She's just bad at it. And I find it weird that having seen so many people from non-striking arcs, be it wrestlers, be it BJJ people, occasionally sambo, judo as well, not be able to develop striking to back up their grappling. It's just weird that we still think that that's a lack of effort or a lack of realization, focus, etc. Like, it's definite that she's trying to become a better striker. It's just not working. The thing I'd actually wish to see her do a lot more is work on her wrestling aspects, because it's not that she doesn't need to strike, because some fundamental striking is required in MMA, regardless of how good you are as a specialist. But her problem is more that this was a 5-round fight, and in 3 of those rounds, she could not implement any form of a grappling game. Like, when she did, round 2 and 5, she dominated. Those were the 2 most dominant rounds of the fight. And she just needs better takedowns. That's what it is. Like, she needs better takedowns. And unfortunately, the problem is, of course, when dealing with people who've been in wrestling, we're talking about years and years and years and years. And that's always the problem, is that she's in her late 20s and transitioning over and like establishing new fundamental skills is going to be hard. It's going to be hard. I did a weird confrontation with someone who really didn't like the idea that the commentators said the clock was ticking on Dern. I will be clear here. I don't like the clock is ticking like thing. I really don't, because the hands of time move one direction, and that's forwards. The clock is ticking on you right now. It's clicking on me right now. It's clicking on some 7-year-old who might be a future UFC champion right now. Like, it's just a ridiculous assumption. But it is the fact that, like, yeah, there is a solid chance that, like, this is as good as Dern gets. And that is world-class grappling that she has a hard time actually inflicting on elite fighters, and bad striking. Next opponents, I've got Jun and Yan versus Thug Rose. It's kind of a fight that makes some sense for both of them, and there's not really a lot else at the top that does. And then for Dern, I don't know. Like, I looked through the entire top 10, and there's not a single fight in there that really makes me excited to see what Dern can do. Because if this is the best she's going to get, I kind of just want to see her go out there and submit people and like ragdoll people and grapple with people and let her get a couple of wins against the lower ends of the division. But I don't even know who that is. And the UFC probably won't do that because they want to push Mackenzie Dern. And they don't slow push people like ever. The closest thing to a slow push we've seen, well, okay, two cases. Sage Northcutt was an actual slow push. I guess you could say CM Punk was a slow push as well. And with Conor McGregor, they did a good job of not necessarily slow pushing him because the rankings were appropriate, but matchmaking him appropriately to get wins. And that's the thing is that outside of Conor, the UFC has never shown any real ability to do it. And that's why I have no faith in them to actually do it here. Randy Brown versus Francisco Trinaldo, 10-9 first round, 10-9 second round for Brown. Trinaldo won the third round. Brown got away with a massive cage grab in the first round. And can we stop saying no nonsense Keith Peterson? Like, this isn't an anti-Keith Peterson like statement here because I think almost every ref would have done the same thing. But it's just weird that like John Anik has gone with like the no nonsense Keith Peterson gimmick, even though Keith Peterson, like, I struggle to think of times where he's actually done anything to stop people from actually fouling and like grabbing the cage and anything like that. Like, he doesn't do a notably worse job than any other ref, but like if you're no nonsense, that should be a point taken away. And there was a second cage grab later on and still no point. So there you go. This was a typical Randy Brown fight. It had elements of showing exactly why it should have been an easy fight for him to win as I knock over a water bottle. And at the same time, his refusal to actually just stick to what was working. Like, he engaged repetitively in the grappling exchanges with Trinaldo. And you've got an 8-inch reach advantage. You've got speed. You've got youth. You've got athletic ability on your side. Just stay on the outside and do it. But he can't do that. He is absolutely allergic to fighting smart. But he got this win. And to be honest, like, people are saying, like, this is a win for Trinaldo winning the 5th round. You know what? In his mid-40s, it is. It is. Like, that's kind of all there is to it. Did this one go to a split or a majority? I'm trying to remember. No, they all went 29-28. Okay, yeah. So, everybody agrees with my card on the judging panel. Okay. Next opponent's Randy Brown versus Jeff Neal. It's a fight of two guys who probably should be more than they are, but will probably get the respective fights that they want against each other, and it'll be interesting. And Trinaldo versus Semi the Jedi, Matt Semmelsberger. Might as well. I mean, it's not like Trinaldo really functions within the structure of the division right now. Ronnie Barcelos went out there and laid a mollywhopping on Trevin Jones. Jones at no point knew what to do. Like his counter offensive game never came into play. Never, ever, ever. Barcelos was able to walk him down, land power strikes, get takedowns, ground and pound, out grapple him. Pretty much at will. Like, this was a very damning fight for Trevin Jones. And I kind of said it in the build-up that Trevin Jones is a counter fighter that I'm not sure that quite often does not get his counter offense going. His finishes tend to come out of nowhere and in no way seem replicable. It feels like literally that if you put him in a fight against the same guy he just knocked out after he knocked him out, he would probably lose. And it's why I probably will never, ever pick him. For next opponents, Barcelos versus Umar Nurmagomedov. Let Ronnie Barcelos, who is getting old, have his big moment, because the UFC has robbed him of like any kind of big fights. Like, please give him someone with a big name at least. And Trevin Jones versus Tony Gravely actually kind of makes a lot of sense. It's probably the most winnable, notable fight for Trevin Jones because Gravely is just so meat and potatoes. But yeah, let's go with that. I scored all of these rounds 10-9, but like you could also score them all 10-8s. But see my debate with the Dern thing. Getting a 10-8 is just so hard in the current judging climate. And I don't blame the judges. I feel like it's on the UFC because they're the only ones who had the stick to throw at every commission and make them kind of chill on the 10-8s. Sadiq Youssef destroyed Don Sheamus, basically got the clinch, landed some good knees, got the guillotine. I will say this though, the commentary went way overboard here because don't get me wrong, this was an impressive performance for Sadiq Youssef. This is how you handle a late notice replacement call up from the regional scene. You show them basically no respect. You go out there and you make a statement. But it's also what you're supposed to do. And the commentary team, particularly Paul Felder, were just kind of just sucking Sadiq Youssef off here. Oh, that guillotine is so new and it's so lethal. And this is a great performance. It was a bit overkill. It was a bit overkill against a guy who not only was taking this on short notice, not only was in a UFC debut, but is like a perfect stylistic matchup for Sadiq Youssef to the point where we're talking about a minus 900 favorite here. Let's calm it down. What's next? Youssef versus Giga Chikadze in a rebooking is what I honestly assume they'll do. It's still a fight that makes sense. It's still probably the most sense-making fight. And for Don Sheamus, I'm hoping he checks out 135. It's one of those cases where like I never want people to cut excessive amounts of weight, but it just feels like at his height and his build, and with his fighting style being so power-oriented, 135 is the answer. So we'll see. I wanted to explore it, but like if it's too much, it's too much. Mike Davis beat Vyacheslav Borsho. I don't know how they get Borsho out of it because I've seen hockey players with that name and it's Borshev. And the Russian pronunciation of the CHEF is almost always Chev, I think. And this includes like watching KHL games where the commentators are Russian. So I don't get the Borsho thing, but like, I don't know. If he's telling Anik it's Borsho, I guess. Borsho just got taken down way too easily in this fight. Like the stand-up phases were fine for him. Like I think he was actually getting the better of Davis at a number of points here. But Davis put him down repetitively and beat him up. And it's kind of a weird thing because apparently Borsho has had some significant injuries in regards to his knees. And that has probably delayed his development as a wrestler. But I do really think he needs to look into a new place because I don't think Team Alpha Male is a place to go to learn wrestling. They have a lot of good wrestlers, but their specialty has always been taking someone with a good wrestling base and building some power striking onto it and building some front headlock games, some guillotines, some anacondas, some I don't think darts jokes necessarily, but anacondas, arm triangles, guillotines, that kind of thing, onto their game and like a good scrambling thing. And that's not what Borsho needs in any way. He needs defensive wrestling. That's not actually really a Team Alpha Male thing. Like I guess it worked out for Andre Fili, but that's about the only example I can think of. I would love to see Mike Davis fight Jared Gordon. I think actually that would be a fantastic fight. And for Borsho, I went with like the most unlikely person to take him down in that area of the rankings, and that's Gabriel Mowgli Benitez. So there you go. Let this man stand and bang because I don't need to see him get screwed again. Like let him. I don't know. He seems like an interesting dude, and it seems like he has a fun action fighter on him. It's just such a problem for him. I missed a good portion of the Daniel Santos versus John Castaneda viewing on first viewing because I had a couple of friends over. They were helping me move my roommate to his new place, his and her new place. There are two of them, and we went to get pizza. And we missed a good chunk of the first round of Santos Castaneda. Went back and watched it. Castaneda hurt him a number of times, gassed out, got hurt with like 30 seconds to go, and then got finished in the second round. And this was a fantastic performance from Daniel Santos that in no way makes me think that he actually is going to be in the UFC for a really long time. Like, there's a lot of physical capabilities to Santos. I said this all in the preview. The man has all the intangibles, but he also has all the how do I put this? The super athlete sort of flaw, which is on the regional scene, I got away with doing stupid shit and it's now become baked into my game. And in the UFC, in this particular weight class, that's probably not going to be something he gets away with a lot. It's not something he got away with last fight. It's something he wasn't getting away with for 4 minutes of this fight. And it still leaves us in a weird place, I guess. Still cool fight of the night. And I've got Santos versus Haile Alatang, or Alatang Haile, depending on how it's said, and Castaneda versus the loser of Julio Arce and Montel Jackson. I think would be a fantastic fight. Please let that happen. Not always like in love with some of my picks here, but I am actually legitimately in love with that idea. Olenek versus Latifi sucked, as I kind of thought it would, but it's still kind of neat to see a fridge a fridge avoid getting strangled. The interesting things here is that honestly, Olenek came in heavy for this fight. Like, he came in 250 plus, and like his best work has been like 225 to like 235, maybe 240. 240 be okay. But north of 250, he's just kind of listless. Probably had something to do with the fact that he drove from Florida to Vegas to make this fight. Not because of the Tony Kelly reason of, I don't want to get vaccinated, but because he wanted to avoid the hurricane and any travel complications. I don't think he would have won this fight at his best, but I don't think that this was his best. That's all I'm saying. And as for Latifi, dude apparently had a staph infection in his leg. Let's not have fighters fighting with staph, please, because not only are you a danger to your opponent because you have an infection and you're getting into close contact, and in this case, very close contact because this is mostly a grappling fight, you're also potentially dropping that infection onto the canvas, which means everyone after you might get it. It's unlikely, but like, it's a maybe. Like, God damn it. And this was a visible infection too. Like, this was I picked I didn't pick up on it, but one of the people that was watching with me is a former high school wrestler and now wrestles for a Canadian university. And she said, that does not look right. As soon as Latifi walked out. So, whatever. Both of these guys should retire. They're in their mid 40s. Latifi's run at heavyweight just seems to be him getting fatter and kind of listless. And I don't know. Like, if you could find Olenek someone to fight that he can like throw another scarf choke on or something, I'm here for it. But that's kind of about it. This was kind of the meme fight I needed out of both of these guys. And there's not much after that. Joaquin Silva was just too fast, too physical, too athletic for Jesse Ronson. Jesse Ronson is a guy who fights southpaw, and that confuses enough people on the regional scene that he can kind of win with like meat and potato boxing and like body kicks. And against Joaquin Silva, he's got the cheat code that is super athleticism and super good striking. But like Daniel Santos is a insane individual. But he was landing some good jumping knees here. It was just very, very in his favor here. Had he pressed like a more volume-based game, I think he would have finished Ronson in the first round. It was just that he was kind of low volume and let Ronson kind of do what he wanted to do at range, and it just didn't work. And yeah, that's about it. For Neto BJJ, give him Manuel El Luco Torres, and I think this will probably be the last we see of Jesse Ronson in the UFC. Couple of fighters on this card, I think, probably are in the same boat, but Ronson feels the most cuttable. Brendan Allen, Krzysztof Jotko. I was wrong on this fight. I guess that's all I can say. Now, mind you, I was wrong in the sense that I thought Jotko would utilize a methodical breakdown of the striking game and maybe grapple if he had to, but he went right to the mat with Brendan Allen. Like, he dumped him. And immediately, Allen's attacking the arm, gets the reversal. Jotko ends up with trying to cage walk back up, but like gets dragged back down, gets mounted briefly, and then Allen rolls into a rear naked choke. It was a fantastic fight for Allen. It makes me respect the fight with Jacob Malkoun a little bit more, because specifically, like, okay, Jotko could not do anything on top, and Malkoun was able to. So that's impressive. That's cool. It's making me feel a little bit better about Malkoun, although he is fighting Nix Maximo coming up, and I kind of think that that's going to be a terrible fight. But yeah. Brendan Allen versus Andre Muniz is a fight that I kind of need in my life. I don't have anything for Jotko. I don't think he should be cut or anything. He's been competitive enough. He's been winning enough. It's just that Jotko is just a neutralizer. He hasn't moved beyond that. He made some poor decisions here in this fight. Kind of like Jean Agnon going into Mackenzie Dern's guard. And I don't know, like he should be in the UFC. He's good enough. It's just there's no fight that you could give Jotko that I would get supremely excited about. So it's kind of like put him in there with someone who has some upside, but is a bit reckless and maybe needs to be tested on the depth of their game, and go with that. Julia Stoliarenko tried to get an armbar on Chelsea Chandler. Chandler got top position and then beat the crap out of her. That's about it. Chandler is super physically impressive. Her game is not flashy or necessarily the deepest, but I think she has promise, and I don't know why they're forcing her to cut down to 135. This was 140. But Chandler, 135, just kind of always looks kind of drained and tired. And at 145, she's an interesting and fun fighter. So I don't know why you would sign her and force her to go down, which seems to be the case, because she talked about the UFC talking about wanting to put her at 135 post-fight. How she was willing to do it, but would prefer 145. And as she fights at 135, I've got Alexis Davis penciled in here for just like someone who offers some decent grappling defense and versatility and some striking threat, and that Chandler will have a physical edge on, and hopefully, even if she looks super drained, will be able to do her thing. There you go. Stoliarenko probably should be cut. She's really, she is cut rate Ronda Rousey. She is a not physically imposing, not particularly deep grappler with pretty poor stand-up who has some good armbar setups and, armbar Jessica Rose Clark and, had some success against Alexis Davis as a grappler and had momentary success in this fight as a grappler and then got pounded out. Like, she's just not UFC material, but 135 is so shallow they'll probably keep her. I don't know who you put her up against, though. And Randy Costa versus Guido Canetti. The old man got it done. Guido Canetti, 42 years old, at bantamweight. Catches a kick from Costa, knocks him off balance, and puts him on his back. Gets the back, rear naked choke, no hooks, sweet. Randy Costa looked pretty bad. People are calling for him to get cut, but I think this was the first fight of a new contract, so we'll probably see him again. I put him up against somebody new from the regional scene, probably, or like a Chad and Hilliger type fight. And for Kennedy, I've got Ayman Zahabi. He keeps saying his brother is a better fighter, and to be honest, if his brother is younger than him, the UFC should probably just sign him. You're trying to expand this Argentinian revolution. You might as well go for it. It's not going to get any better. So there you go. Then we move on to the Bellator 268 card. Main event was pretty lackluster. Patricio Pitbull Ferreri versus Adam Boric. It looked like Boric was just completely unprepared for this fight. I guess that shouldn't really be a surprise. But like his plan seemed to be like, I'll just catch Pitbull with a flying knee. And that is not going to happen, especially when there's like no real setup to the flying knee even. Like Boric has got all this athleticism and size and reach, and he doesn't know how to use the reach. And yeah, I mean, I picked Pitbull, so like I'm happy, but like I was expecting something. I was expecting Boric to come in with like a game plan that would have some upside, and he really, really didn't. Like he really did. This was really, really bad. And it's not that Pitbull is not at fault. Like there were various points where he could have done more, but one, he's not necessarily the highest activity guy. 2, he was winning the entire time. 3, he seemed actually ready. And I value preparation. And I don't think he was even ready for Boric to be that terrible. AJ McKee beat Spike Carlisle in a really fun fight. At least the first round was really, really fun. The second and third, not quite as much. But Spike Carlisle is I don't know why the UFC released this guy. Like on one hand, as a person, I really don't like Spike Carlisle. Those who are unaware, Spike Carlisle is like hyper right-wing Catholic with some anti-Semiticism thrown in, which I guess goes with that package in general. Like his Twitter is a nightmare. But at the same time, to be clear, this is an example of like, so every time you say anything, you get the cancel culture people and the like, oh, you can't, like, someone can't have a different political view to you. I am not expecting MMA fighters to have rational political views or rational views on anything, to be honest. These are people who elect to, all get CTE and get punched in the head for a living and destroy their bodies, and they should know it. So I'm not expecting for like nuanced political delivery from any MMA fighter or combat sports athlete in general. The problem I always have is that sometimes is more like with the fandom of it. Like Jake Shields is a great example of this. He's super right-wing conspiracy. He's an idiot, admittedly. Like he'll put out stuff about the Sandy Hook parents and Alex Jones's trial, where they're suing him, and he's very on Alex Jones's side, and then he'll admit that he has no idea what the case is about. Like he has no idea what Alex Jones said. He has no idea what the crux of like the case is, but he'll get like interaction from like 500 people, and like that's my thing is like Spike Carlisle. You go to his Twitter, no one takes Spike Carlisle seriously, so like it's not a problem. He's a crazy person and he's treated as such. And it might be the fact that he's also crazy in the cage. But like you can make a lot of money with this guy. He Like I said, it's almost impossible to have a boring fight with him. AJ McKee could not do it. He got because Spike will bring the fight to you, and he's got a lot of tremendous physicality despite a complete lack of defense and even like offensive savvy. Like he is a hot mess every second of the fight, whether he's in control or not. And it's why I probably won't actually ever really pick him. Like he is my king of the guy I can't trust ever in MMA. I mean, there are other guys, but like you could tell me that Spike, you like, I could see Spike Carlisle fight a can and lose, and it wouldn't actually surprise me. Like that's what we're talking about here. But it's fun, and yeah, this was fun. Go watch this fight if you haven't seen it. Like the main event, you don't need to see, but Bellator is on YouTube for free. Go check this fight out. There's a couple others that we'll talk about. Jeremy Kennedy versus Aaron Pico. Pico was doing fine until he apparently broke his clavicle or dislocated his shoulder. I don't think I've gotten confirmation on what the injury was. And then he had his corner like violently yank on it, trying to put it back into place, which by every doctor is a bad idea. And then we got the lovely insight of Josh Thompson, speaking of guys who get punched in the head for a living and don't have a nuanced take, wondering why the fight got stopped. What? Like, no, you can't stop the fight. He wasn't in danger. He had one arm. Josh. And then Josh's only like comeback was like, oh, I didn't know it was broken because I don't get the same in-ring audio. Look at Pico's shoulder. It's clearly fucked up. It's clearly messed up, guys. Oh my lord. Bellator does need to move past the Big John McCarthy and the Punk. Not commentary duel because Punk doesn't do commentary, but their input duel because the Punk is terrible. Like I loved Josh Thompson, the fighter. Really? Massive fan. Had no idea why the UFC took the lightweight division away after him versus Eve Edwards. So that's a dope fight. His fight with Hermes Franco also pretty dope. But no, I don't need to hear his thoughts on like anything. and Big John is just bad on commentary. If you want to keep Big John as like a between fight analyst, rules expert, like I can live with that. But that's it. Juan Archuleta versus Enrique Barzola was a super fun fight. Barzola is fun against anybody. He refuses to. He's always going to bring the fight to them. It's kind of like a more controlled version of Spike Carlisle. But Archuleta was able to just kind of like outbox him. Like he was doing great on a 1-2 entry with a cut. Like he'd throw the 1-2, cut to the left, cut to the right, and then throw a hook on top of that through the guard of Barzola. It was very effective. Not that he wasn't getting hit with anything, but like dominant display on the feet too. Dominant might be a bit strong. Predictable but effective display on the feet. There you go. And neither of them could really impose their wrestling game on the other. They were both good enough wrestlers to kind of get away with it. I didn't talk about the UFC callouts where they keep calling out betting site guys and betting handicappers and stuff, and I don't like it because it's kind of weird. Like we live in a world where like Pete Rose betting on sports led to him being banned from the Hall of Fame, and MMA is going through this embracement of betting that I don't really care for because it means we get Yanni the Greek talking about betting odds for a good chunk of a card and doing a bad job, in my opinion. And then we get fighters calling them out, and it's in their post fight, like shout outs. They're like, "Thanks this guy, you'll go follow him." Like it just seems like a weird conflict of interest. Same with like James Krause offering betting advice while being one of the main coaches on a lot of UFC cards. I don't like it. Whatever, I guess. And then I didn't like the call out here by Archuleta. Thank you, Hans Molenkamp, because that guy is just so slimy. He's the dude who controls like the Monster Energy athlete endorsement deals, and like the way to get a endorsement deal is like let Hans Molenkamp like inflate his penis off of being your friend. It's really, really cringy and weird. On the undercard, we had Islam Mamedov maul Nick Brown, make him a bloody mess, and Mamedov is for real. There was a weird split decision between JJ Wilson and which Talkoff was it? There are like 3 different Talkoffs. My apologies here. Vladimir Talkoff. Let me look at the scorecard here real quick. This was one of 2 weird scorecards on the night. Yeah, here we go. So Derek Cleary and Chris Grail scored it like I did, 10-9 first and third rounds to JJ Wilson. Rafael Davis gave the first round to Talkoff. What? By the way, this is a classic fight of like if you have someone who finds grappling boring, like this is the fight to show them because this was fun. Like JJ Wilson is going for arm bars and chokes and leg locks throughout and just being a fun, messy fighter. Like I don't know if I'm ever going to trust him to like be a high-end fighter. I'm not really going to trust that, but he is with ATT now. Maybe it'll get better. But this was super fun. Super fun fight. I have no idea how Talkoff got that first round. He was in trouble for like almost the entire round. I'm wondering if that's Rafael Davis, the MMA fighter who was like a big on wrestler who never seemed to understand grappling. Maybe that's the key. I don't know. He's a list of former MMA fighters that I have no interest in seeing judge fights. Rafael Davis. I'm not sure if this is the same guy. The Lance Gibson and Weber Almeida fights were fine. I don't really know how Ryan Lilly got a split decision off of that card because there are no rounds he should have won at all. He fought Weber Almeida. I have no idea. All judges gave him a round, including Chris Lieben. I don't know. He was low output the whole time. It looks like the third round is the one that Jackie Denklin and Rafael Davis and Chris Lieben gave. I think that is actually the old MMA fighter Rafael Davis. The more I look at this, I don't know. Not much more to say about the Bellator card. Do not watch the Palencia versus Hamilton fight if you're squeamish, because that is a leg break and you don't want to see it. And then we go over to one where we'll finish off. I think the former roommate is here to move some stuff, so I'll be helping him with that. So let's finish up this podcast real quick because I don't have a lot to say about the one card. Angela Lee versus Zhang. Controversy about this decision. If you were scoring this round by round, I kind of get it because Lee probably won the second, fourth, and fifth rounds with more consistent offense, a little bit more control, a little cleaner. But like the first and third round were all Zhang. Zhang dropped Lee twice in the first round, dropped her partially 3 times in the third round. And Lee's only real semi fight ending sequence of any kind was the anaconda / guillotine / front headlock that she had in the second round that she used to land some good knees. That was the highlight of her killer instinct. And of course, the problem with that is that one uses kind of the old school pride scoring system, which is all about damage and fight ending. And in that regard, Zhang easily won this fight. And it's a good fight. Go check it out. It's a fun fight. Angela Lee losing is always something that is never, ever, ever going to get old for me because she is the queen of sore losers, calling other people sore losers because she'll often cheat in fights and then talk about Warrior Spirit doesn't complain about cheating. Well, Warrior Spirit doesn't complain about having a bad decision. There you go. That's I hate the Lees. I'm sorry. Perfectly exciting fighters, but annoying as human beings. Mikey Musumeci won the bantamweight grappling title against Kleber Souza. This was pretty easy to score, I thought. Musumeci had all the offense, really. Souza was, I don't want to say in survival mode, but like never seemed to really figure out how to implement like his own kind of submission game. Like there's a lot of, it's Musumeci going like, Musumeci is the get in my guard guy. Like get in my guard and I will threaten your leg. I will threaten your arm. I will do everything. And then he had the most polite call out after the fight of Mighty Mouse Johnson. I don't want to say that see that as a mixed rules fight. I don't need to see Mike Musumeci have to strike against Demetrius Johnson. But if they want to have a grappling match, I'm cool with that. That's fine. Stamp Fairtex had a pretty impressive performance against Jean Rad. I always get this girl's name wrong. Radzuan, I think is what it is. Shadowcat. We'll just call her Shadowcat. Shadowcat didn't have the physicality matchup with her. When she did get the clinch that she wanted, she couldn't really do much with it. Stamp was the far better striker, obviously. Was able to put her down. There was a third round triangle choke from the Shadowcat, but that was kind of about it. Easy decision for Stamp. Stamp is a little bit chancy for my taste. Still kind of mixes it up on the ground a little bit more than she should. But she is an absolute beast, and she does seem to be rounding out her game very, very seriously. And she's very, very marketable. She has that kind of like bubbly energy, the Stamp dance. Not really big on the Stamp dance myself, but like, you know, there's definitely a magnetism to her personality, and she's probably not going to have a boring fight very often. So go with it. And then the other two fights saw Ilya Fremenov just kind of dominate Martin Nguyen. Pretty much destroyed him. Love knees on the ground. And now Fremenov did look huge compared to Martin. So that's something to keep in mind. And I forget his first name now. Amir, the guy from Turkey. I know that doesn't help. Where is it here? Halil Amir. There we go. Against Timothy Nasukin. Pretty impressive win, actually. Good finish, but like, I think he's exceptionally raw. Like, there's a good deal of physicality to him, but like, he's an exceptionally raw fighter. Needs to round out a little bit more before we get excited about him. But like, the building blocks are there, so that's fine. I will say the one thing that might be hard to fix is that when Nasukin would come forward with like a blitz of punches, Amir kind of cowers. Like he covered. Like I don't mean he just covers up. Like there's a distinctly uncomfortable body language to him that leads him to having bad posture and probably will likely get him hit kind of hard at some point. And it just looks bad for the judges. So that was one on Prime 3. Is this the third card on Prime? I think so. Yes, it was. No, two. Prime 2. I mean, I guess you had the big storyline of the trilogy fight with Angela Lee and Jean. So that was cool. But like the rest of the card was a little lower down. Musumeci in a grappling match is always going to be cool. Always going to bring me in. But a little bit of a simmer. But still, not bad. It did come out that like one has lost over $100 million this year. Or last year, 2021. Which is terrible. And their finances just look really, really terrible. So, I mean, as long as there are people who want to launder their money through it, I guess they'll live. But, like, we're coming. There's a pride ending to one coming at some point where, like, it just falls apart. Finish off with an RIP for Antonio Inoki, who passed away of a problem with his heart tendons, I do believe. Which sounds kind of horrifying. And that's about it. Check the links down below. I'll be streaming tonight. And I will see you guys for the next UFC card. On Thursday. Fight card's not on Thursday. I'll be filming the podcast on Thursday. There we go. Now I'm done.